Well, how's it going so far?
Good.
Didn't Josh do a great job? Well, I'm not as smooth as Josh. My name's Scott Worsham. I work for Cardinal Health. I worked for Cardinal Health for 15 years. So I work out in the field all the time. So, well, Josh does too. Josh is out in the field all the time too. He's really good at what he does. But just wanted to talk a little bit now about operational imperatives, what you need to do if you decide you're going to buy a pharmacy. But, you know, healthcare today is changing so fast that it's hard to keep up with where it's going. If you step back and ask yourself a few questions, what do we know about healthcare and what do we know about the future of healthcare? Well, the first thing we know is that the population is aging. Medicare says that by 2020, it's going to exceed 65 million enrollees in Medicare. The next thing we know is that as we get older, we get sicker. When I was 25 years old, I never had to have a prescription filled at the pharmacy. I didn't need to. Now I'm 52 years old, and I'm not even going to tell you how many scripts I have to get on a regular basis. I have a family now. When I was 25, I didn't. I have a family, have a wife. She's the same age I am. I have 2 kids, one 20, one 22. So healthcare keeps getting more expensive and more expensive for us, and likewise with anyone else. Of course, an 85-year-old has a higher cost profile than a 65-year-old. Baby boomers are getting older, and soon they're going to be considered old. And the bad part about that is I'm a baby boomer, so I fit right into that category. The next thing is that innovation is not going away. Entrepreneurship is one of our society's greatest strengths, and innovation improves health. So as we get better at what we do, healthcare gets better, people live longer, and healthcare costs continue to go up. One of the problems that Josh and I face today is that we're looking at the pharmacist population, and they're aging too. Over 50% of the independent pharmacies owners are over 60 years old. So what we need some sharp-minded people like you guys to step up and take the reins of independent pharmacy. But, you know, I can think of an account that I have right now in Bristol, Virginia. Have a pharmacy owner. He purchased his pharmacy. I don't know if anyone of you would be familiar with Bunnings Pharmacy in Bristol. It was originally on State Street in Bristol years ago. My mother used to take me there. I'd get hot dogs, and I can still taste the chili on those hot dogs. Of course, that store's gone now, but John Vandeventer in Bristol, Virginia bought that store. And now it's moved to on the Bristol, Virginia side, and he still runs a very successful business. He still makes a lot of money. If you look at his income statement and his balance sheet, he makes a lot of money. But he's done. He's at the age where he wants to do something else. Not that he dislikes pharmacy, but he wants to, his son is on a Canadian tour. He wants to travel with his son. His wife wants to travel, so he wants to do something else. The good thing about for John is he has a young pharmacist working with him. Patrick has been with him for about 2 years, and Patrick is interested in pharmacy ownership. So, but the thing about Patrick is that for the past 2 years he's been sitting in front of a pharmacy screen filling prescriptions. He hasn't been worried about all the things that go on in the operation of the business. So now his mindset has totally changed in what he's interested in. Yeah, he was interested in making sure that inventory was under control, making sure that he was making money on scripts and wasn't losing money, even though sometimes you do. But now he has so much more to think about. So let's say someone wants to step outside the box, be innovative, and purchase a pharmacy. So what do you do now? Well, these are some of the things that we're going to talk about in the next few minutes. Who knows what a PSAO is? Yes?
Pharmacy Services Administrative Organization.
Very good.
Gold Star.
You know that from a boot camp you went to before.
Something like
It took me forever to figure that one out. That was good. We work for Cardinal Health, and our PSAO is LeaderNet. Reconciliation, making sure that you get paid what you're supposed to get paid. The insurance company doesn't always like to pay you what you're worth. Pre and post edit, looking at the script on the front and the back, making sure that you're making maximum profitability. Inventory management. Why would you want more inventory on the shelf than you need to have? Why would you not want to take those dollars and invest them somewhere else instead of having them sitting back in the pharmacy? You may want to invest them on the front end and make more money on the front end. Local store marketing. How are you marketing your pharmacy? What are you doing to be different from everyone else? Front end management. What are you doing to drive traffic through your store? Access to patients and networks. As the industry changes, everything's based on performance, and in order to be part of a network, you have to perform. Reimbursements, continued pressure on reimbursements. Business operations, identifying new revenue streams. It's not enough anymore to sit in front of a pharmacy screen and fill a prescription. There's so much more that you have to do to bring money in the door, and there's a lot of things that you can do. And what's the pharmacist's role this day and time? Used to, all the pharmacists did was sit in front of the pharmacy screen. Some of my most successful stores are guys that get out and they know the customer when he's coming in the door. I don't see that when I walk into a Walgreens. I don't see the pharmacist running out and say, "Hey, how you doing?" He's back behind the counter and I never see him. That's what makes an independent pharmacy different from anybody else out there, is they have a relationship with their customers that the chains don't have. So, access to patient, Pharmacy Services Administrative Organization. What is it and what is its role? I would describe LeaderNet, which is our PSAO, is a pharmacy owner's best friend. They do a lot of things for you, some things you realize, some things you don't realize. Years ago, LeaderNet was created by Cardinal Health to compete with other PSAOs. Everything was totally different back then. Basically what they did was they contracted with third parties. They had a help desk. They communicated with the stores. And there may have been a few more tests than that, but their basic thing was to contract with the third parties and make sure the stores had access. Today, it's so much more. Let's go back even a little bit further before managed care. You walked in the door, you handed the pharmacist your script, he filled the script for you, he made 50% on the script, you paid him, you walked out the door, and he got his money right then. There wasn't anything like managed care. Today, you have a different animal. You have something called managed care. So about 90% of retail independent business is managed care. Pharmacies typically do business with about 30 to 50 PBMs a month. Underneath each one of those PBMs may be many, many, many plans, so sometimes they're hard to identify. So pharmacies need an organization like LeaderNet to help them through that process. Everything that we do today is designed to take the administrative duties off of the pharmacy so the pharmacy can concentrate on taking care of their patients. And of course, we also have those pharmacists who are along in their years and they want to spend 1 or 2 days in the pharmacy and let somebody else run the pharmacy the rest of the time, and they need the protection of everything else that we do on a regular basis. So what else do we do at LeaderNet other than just third-party contracting? Well, you've heard of MAC, maximum allowable cost, upper level that a PBM will pay for a generic drug. We do Sometimes there's under reimbursement. Sometimes the price of the drug cost goes up, and the reimbursement doesn't go up along with it. So you're under reimbursed. So we have a MAC reimbursement team, MAC reimbursement assistance, that works with the stores to try to get those MACs up and help the stores make more money. We have audit assistance. With the onset of the Affordable Care Act, you're seeing more and more and more audits in the stores. They want to make sure that everything's going the way that things should be going. So we assist the stores with audit assistance. Central pay. Someone had a question earlier about central pay. Used to, everything was by check from the PBM. You adjudicated claims, and then when the PBM does pay you, it comes to the pharmacy in the form of a check. Well, sometimes those checks disappear, either through the mail, or they fall behind the desk, or somehow, some way you lost that money. Well, today pretty much everything is electronic. At least 80% of it is. Central pay is made up of about 80% of the PBMs that pay us electronically. We still have some PBMs that will not cooperate with central pay, the central pay system, those being Medco, Humana. They don't want to cooperate with getting the money quicker to the pharmacies, so they won't go through the central pay system. So in that particular case, you probably still get an electronic transfer. In some cases you could get a check, but there's still an electronic transfer directly into your bank account from Medco or Humana. But central pay speeds up the payment process by 1 to 3 days and gets your money quicker to you. You don't have to worry about that check falling behind the desk anymore. Compliance management. Third parties now require credentialing, training in the stores, and to make sure they have to do training when it comes to fraud, waste, and abuse. HIPAA, I think HIPAA came in the day of Bill Clinton. It gets more complicated every year. The Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act. You walk into the stores, you see all these blinds and covers and everything, so you can't hear what the pharmacist is saying. You can't see anything going on behind the counter. Additional cost of the pharmacy, but it's something that's part of our environment now, and we have to comply with it. So CMS mandated OIG checks, Office of Inspector General. Basically, you have to go out once a month and check your employee's record to make sure you don't have a convicted felon working in your pharmacy. We help with that. Equip dashboard. Everything today, moving forward, is going to be based on performance. You want to know how your pharmacy is doing. We have something called an Equip dashboard that enables you to go into your pharmacy system and look at the different measures that they require you to keep up with and see how you're performing. Prescription editing, which I've already mentioned briefly. Reconciliation complete. Reimbursement consulting services, looking at the data on the backside after the script has gone through the switch and everything's been reimbursed, and you look at the backside to see what you did wrong. Maybe I can back out and rebuild something. I still have a period that I can do that in. But this allows you to look at all your data, gives you a lot of multiple reports that you can look at and help make your pharmacy more profitable. Medication therapy management. As we move forward, access will be based on performance, and this is something that's going to be required. MTM plays an important role in improving the performance of your pharmacy in the eyes of the PBM. So, do you have a choice of PSAOs? The answer to that question is yes. LeaderNet is not the only one out there. There are many others. Epic, United, Good Neighbor, Access Health, LeaderNet, Third Party Station. That's just to name a few. There are a lot of others out there. This is the thing that I would suggest. You need to pick a quality PSAO that is large enough to do the things they need to do to keep you compliant, because the PBM is watching you. And moving forward, it's all going to be about access to networks. If you don't have access to the network, access to the patients, then you're out of business. if you don't pick a prestigious PSAO that's worried about quality, that's worried about integrity, that's making sure that every store underneath that PSAO hat is performing, then you're not going to have access to the high-performance networks. So that's something that's crucial. And that's one of the first huge differences between LeaderNet and some of the other PSAOs is the fact that Cardinal Health owns LeaderNet. It's not that way with every PSAO. Some of the smaller PSAOs, third-party station, Epic, that's pretty much a relationship. So some of the smaller wholesalers are going to partner with a PSAO because they don't own one. So they have to do something to offer something to their stores. In a lot of cases, those networks do not have the quality that a LeaderNet would have because, number one, LeaderNet is now the third largest PSAO in the United States. So with that additional size, they have the ability to negotiate lower contract rates than some of the other PSAOs would be able to do.
Scott, I'd throw one thing in here. So whichever way, when you own a pharmacy and you're making a decision for wholesaler, all your support and services, one of the critical questions that you need to ask when evaluating a PSAO, Scott covered a lot of those. How many covered lives does this PSAO go and contract for, right? How many pharmacies are in the network? Are they looking at performance? All of those things really matter. The other thing you want to ask is who's making the decisions as to whether I'm bound to accept this contract or not. So a lot of PSAOs do this different ways. All I can talk about is how Cardinal does it, and it's unique. I know the PSAO that McKesson offers and the PSAO that Amerisource Bergen offers, they do not make decisions the same way. So one question you want to know is who's deciding? Is it someone who's never filled a prescription before, who's just looking at a spreadsheet determining what my reimbursement, what I'm willing to accept? Because a PSAO is signing third-party contracts on your behalf. And once you're bound, you're required to fill prescriptions when people come in with those plans. Sometimes you might get one or two that aren't profitable, but you're bound by contract to sign that. Or it may not be the profit that you'd like to see on that prescription, but you're bound by contract. So when someone is signing your store and agreeing that you will accept that reimbursement, you need to know how do they make that decision. What we do is we have a board of independent pharmacy owners that make up the LeaderNet panel, and it is that board's decision what contracts LeaderNet accepts and rejects. So Cardinal provides legal advice to that panel, as well as some financial analysis for some of the reimbursement metrics. But Cardinal Health does not decide which contracts our independent pharmacies will be required to fill under or what the reimbursement terms will be. We help negotiate, but we don't have the decision. The pharmacy owners on this panel make a decision. And in some states, when it's pretty tight, and it could go either way, because they have to constantly balance two things, right? Access to lives and financial performance, right? I can have access to all the lives, but if I don't make any money, do I really want to do it? At the same time, if I don't have access to anyone, maybe I'm willing to take a little bit less reimbursement to get access, right? You need people coming through the door and you need money coming in. You need both. So you can't serve two masters. So you sort of have to juggle both. So that panel is constantly trying to find, lack of a term, sweet spot where they can balance the needs of access to patients as well as the right reimbursement. When it gets pretty tight, because I think there's 6 or 7 people on that panel, so maybe they're making a decision that affects pharmacies in Tennessee, and there's nobody from Tennessee that really has a voice maybe on that panel on that year's rotation. So in the past, we've done things like send out questionnaire surveys to pharmacy owners that are in LeaderNet in that specific state and say, this is what we're looking at. We're trying to make a decision. What's more important to you, access or reimbursement? Help us decide. We don't always poll, but there are times when that has come up. So whichever way you go when you own a pharmacy one day, how those decisions are made at the third-party contracting level is really, really important. Know how, if someone else is signing contracts on your behalf, know how they're making the decisions and who's making that decision. It's just good sense for you, right?
How are we on time?
We're going until
You guys have
Noon.
until
11:30
noon.
on this
Yep.
section.
11:30 on this section? Okay,
Yeah.
well, we're going to run out of time here.
That's okay.
So with that being said, LeaderNet has had to change. The PSAOs have had to change over the last short period of time simply because of industry changes. So I thought I would kind of bring you up to date on some of the issues that have come about in the new climate of healthcare. So first of all, we have PBM consolidation. PBMs acquiring other PBMs. What that's doing is putting more pressure on reimbursement, driving reimbursement down. We have the onset of narrow networks. We now compete for access. It's all about performance of the total network. That's why we're so worried about the stores within our network and want them to perform. So I don't know if any of you have ever heard of Optum, but they created a commercial network offering for United Healthcare. There were only 4 PSAOs included in that narrow network, so any PSAO outside of that network was not included. And of course, those were LeaderNet, Medicine Shop, and those within Cardinal Health. I also think Good Neighbor may have been included in that network, but there again, they're looking at the high-performing networks so they get the most bang for their buck. Performance metrics are really starting to count. CMS has assigned the PBM star ratings. If the PBMs don't perform, then they're out. If they're assigned anywhere between a 1 and a 5. If they stay at a 3 rating over a 3-year period, they could be kicked out altogether. So it's important that we all perform. Medicare prescription drug plans today are tracking and evaluating patient outcomes data and are using that data to determine which pharmacies can participate in the preferred networks. You've heard of CrestPoint. Of course, you're either with CrestPoint, you're either preferred or you're not preferred. You see all the advertising on TV of a zero copay. You see all these people rushing to CrestPoint because they think they don't have to pay anything. But there's a lot of things you got to consider about that. What's the formulary? What are your needs? What's the formulary? A lot of stores want to be in that network, but if you're not considered a preferred pharmacy, if you are a preferred pharmacy, there is a copay differential. There's an advantage to it. If you're not preferred, then more likely that patient's not going to come to you. They're going to go to wherever that preferred pharmacy is. So with all the changes in the industry, you can kind of see why LeaderNet has to make some of the changes that they're making and why they want the stores underneath them to perform. So let's talk a little bit about networks. What does community pharmacy need to understand about networks? Well, we've already talked about a lot of it, and that's the fact that to be included in a high-performance network, you have to perform yourself. So patient adherence to their medication. What's the store doing to make sure that there is patient adherence, that the patient outcomes are good, are successful? Are they taking their medications? So how do networks impact pharmacies and consumers? Well, there's 2 types of networks. There's a traditional network, which is called an open network. That's a traditional network where you can take your prescription anywhere in the United States to any pharmacy you wanted to go to, walk in the door, give your script to the pharmacist, he can fill it, and basically pay the same copay or the same out-of-pocket cost anywhere in the United States. It doesn't work that way anymore. Now we're seeing narrow networks only allow patient access to a select number of pharmacies that are in the high-performing networks. So pharmacies compete for access in these networks and trade off lower reimbursement rates. If you're part of that high-performing network, part of that narrow network, then you're going to have less reimbursement. Your reimbursement rate is going to be less, and you're trading off to get an increased number of patients. So why are narrow networks on the rise? Well, PBM's using our networks as a way to help control drug spending. So they look at things like geographic area that the pharmacy serves, the quality of care that it delivers to the patient, and many other performance measures. But there's fewer pharmacies in the network, they're high performing, and there's less cost to the PBM that way. So what does a pharmacy need to do to be able to participate? Well, it's not as much about the pharmacy as it is about, say, LeaderNet or Good Neighbor, because what's happening is again, the PBM's looking at the PSAO saying, are you performing? Are you performing overall? And if you are, then we're going to include you in the network. So what do you have to do? Well, improve medication adherence in your patients, especially in the areas of star ratings. Identify those gaps in care. Working to close those gaps in care through patient counseling and medication therapy management. Who knows what medication therapy management is? I know a lot of you do. Well, basically what it is, basically in order to drive down cost, medication therapy management is done with patients to make them, to improve the outcomes of those patients, as well as their adherence on specific measures. So some of those, and there's 5 core components of medication therapy management. One would be a medication therapy review, a personal medication record, a medication-related action plan, intervention and or referral, and documentation and follow-up. So it's important that the stores perform these MTMs in order to be compliant in the network. So because of the move of the industry to performance-based measures, it's crucial that pharmacies perform their MTM cases. In the past, stores really didn't put a big need on performing these cases because of several reasons. Number one, there wasn't as much focus put on it by CMS. It wasn't required like it is now. Number two, it takes a lot of time with the pharmacist, and the pharmacist needs to do other things in the pharmacy. It takes a lot of time. The third thing is all the paperwork that's required with it. So if you compare the opportunity cost before of what the pharmacy could make doing something else in his pharmacy as compared to doing those cases, it just wasn't worth it to him. Now it's pretty much a mandatory thing. Because it's so crucial to Cardinal Health that these cases are performed, we've put out there our own solution. It's called an MTM solution. So what we do is we perform the MTM cases for the pharmacy. It takes the burden off of them. It makes them compliant, and they look good in the network that way. We do. Any money that they get from those MTM cases, sometimes a Marixa case may pay the pharmacy $60. If they are paid $60, the money comes is sent to the pharmacy from Marixa, then we bill the pharmacy for the $60. And again, it's not in an effort to make any money off of the pharmacy. We just want the pharmacy to be compliant in the network. And it's also crucial that the stores perform these cases to keep other entities from taking those patients away. Because if you don't perform your cases, then somebody else is going to get those cases. And the fact of the matter also is that statistics show that 95% of the patients who, wherever they get their MTM case performed, that's where they're going to go to the pharmacy. So you're going to lose a patient, you're going to lose all those extra dollars. So let's talk a little bit about declining reimbursement and how reimbursement works. PBM agreements normally have the following reimbursement categories. MAC generics, non-MAC generics, and brand.
Scott, will you cover what MAC means for them? I covered it at the meeting, but
Yeah.
people that they missed it.
MAC means maximum allowable cost.
I'm just going to write.
Maximum allowable cost. MAC is the upper limit that a PBM will pay a pharmacy for a generic drug. So in general, a drug will not be MAC'd, a generic will not be MAC'd until it goes multi-source. When it moves from a brand to a generic, there's an exclusivity period of 180 days where you allow one manufacturer access to that drug to produce that drug. After that 180, so during that time, it's considered a non-MAC generic, and it basically falls underneath the normal contract rate, which would be, the normal contract rate is AWP minus a percentage. Who knows what AWP is? Average wholesale cost is what the manufacturer says that the drug is worth, AWP. So AWP minus a percentage plus a dispensing fee. That would be the non-MAC rate. Once you pass that exclusivity period, the pricing pretty much stays up there pretty good because of the contract that it's under. Once you pass that exclusivity period, the bottom's going to fall out of the drug because you've got multiple manufacturers producing that drug, and the bottom will fall out of it and drop. So you have to be really careful in the pharmacy. If you have a lot of that product sitting on that shelf, that higher cost, and you know the exclusivity period is about up, to get things sometimes to get rid of that product, and because it's you know that's going to drop.
Just as a, you may know, if you don't know, it'll be new information. If you do know, it's just a good reminder. The reimbursement formula on nearly every PBM contract has the same language, and it says the pharmacy will be paid the lesser of submitted usual and customary price. So whatever cash price that's in your schedule that you're submitting on every prescription claim, saying this is my official cash price, what I would take for a cash paying patient. The lesser of usual and customary, call that cash. MAC, if it's a multi-source generic, what the PBM's MAC list says for that specific group and bin number. PBMs all have their own MAC list, and within all of their different networks, each network could potentially have its own MAC list or multiple MAC lists. There is not a Caremark MAC list. There are Caremark MAC lists, right? Multiple. Make sure you heard the S. If it's a branded or a single source generic, then it's what Scott was just saying. It's AWP minus some sort of percent plus sometimes a dispensing fee. More and more we see no dispensing fee. But whatever is submitted, the PBM is going to take the cheapest way out. So if your cash price is not right, if it's too low, they throw all this out and say, oh, you're willing to take that? That's what we'll pay you, right? If it's MAC, they're going to solve for what they think the best MAC price is, and that's what you're going to be reimbursed on a multi-source generic. If it's a branded item or single-source generic, there's going to be a preset formula that is specific to the contract, right? That's what it's going to be. So by and large, this is the most stable measure. AWP doesn't change a whole lot. It changes, but not a whole lot. So that's easy to calculate. MAC lists change every day, all the time. And different states have different MAC legislation, pending or that is passed. Usual and customary, that's sort of self-inflicted. That's what you put through. So just make sure you understand. We have a lot of pharmacy owners even today that we have to remind what the reimbursement formula is for third party. And sometimes some cash prices can get stuck in a schedule and people don't understand. Some owners don't understand why they're not making money, why they're constantly being under reimbursed, and we go and realize that their cash price schedule, they've decided that they wanted to compete with $4 generics, and they went through and made all of their maintenance prescriptions $4. So every time they submit that to the PBM also saw, oh, you're willing to take $4 on this? It's your official cash price? We'll pay you $4. So sometimes it's self-inflicted. I interrupted Scott, I'm sorry, but this is a real big, important thing to make sure you know as a pharmacy owner. You got to know the rules.
So the big thing is that there's no consistency with MAC. One PBM may be at $20. Another PBM may have their MAC price set at $30. Another PBM may not have it MAC'd at all, may have it at the contract rate, so it may be at AWP minus 25%. So one pharmacy, same drug down the street, may make money, and a pharmacy up the street may on a different plan may lose money. So in general, losses on brand. The goal is to decrease branded utilization through lower reimbursement rates. So they're trying to push people away from those brand drugs because there's no money in them. The money's in the generic. So again, so if the contract achieves low reimbursement, why would we accept it? Well, again, Josh mentioned a little while ago, we have a managed care panel, and they look at everything. They look at every aspect of that contract, and most of those people on that managed care panel are pharmacy owners themselves, so they have a stake in what they accept. They're going to have to put up their stake with what they accept. So that's why we have it set up that way. And if they accept the contract, then you know there's a pretty good reason that they accepted it. One thing you have to look at is one report that we send out with a program that we have called RCS is the total profitability of the plan. And it shows you what the total profitability is on a bi-weekly basis. So you can kind of see how much you're making on a particular plan. So, kind of the day is gone when you fret over one prescription, over losing money on one prescription. You kind of got to look at the entire aspect of everything that you feel.
Particularly your multiple prescription patients. So Ms. Jones may come in and have 8 prescriptions. You may lose money on 2, but the other 6 you make enough to cover your loss and make money. Positive money is money, right? So are you better off without Mrs. Jones? No, because net you may be making $100 when it's all said and done. That's $100 you didn't have. And if you lose Mrs. Jones, if you run her off because you're losing money on 2 prescriptions, trying to go back and replace one patient that has 8 prescriptions, that's difficult. And 2, to make sure you got the right mix to pick up an incremental $100 after you covered your costs, that's very difficult. So Scott, it's exactly right. You got to look beyond that one prescription. You got to look at patient level, group level, your whole business. You got to really look macro now. Every penny matters, yes, but also the whole prize matters too. So you got to balance both, access to patients and decline in reimbursement.
Okay, these slides are close, but they're maybe just a hair off from what I'm going to talk about, but it's basically the same thing. So, today owners definitely they have to be better operators than they were 10 years ago. Any business is that way, but this is the healthcare business, so you really got to be on top of your game with everything that's going on. With everything that's going on out there, there are certain things that you have to do when it comes to reimbursement and profitability. There are certain things you have to do on a daily basis. The first thing that I'll tell you is what I'm getting ready to tell you is the chains are doing this, and that's 3 things. They're reconciling every claim because you can lose money and lose a lot of it, and they're editing the script before it goes through, and they're also looking at a post-edit on the back side. So what I like to illustrate sometime is a stool, considering that this is the top of the stool. The top of the stool is your profitability. The stool has 3 legs. You're doing a pre-edit, you're doing a post-edit, and you're reconciling. If you take away one of those legs, it's going to fall over. You're going to lose profitability. These things complement each other. So it's really good if you do all three of them. Let's talk a little bit about reconciliation. Central Pay is our offering that we've already discussed, where the thing about Central Pay is we have all your prescription data flowing through Central Pay. So what Central Pay does is it enables reconciliation. Since we already have that information, we can take that information and reconcile it for you. So if, let's say you're a pharmacy, and with an average of 1 claim per minute that you're reconciling at $15 for a tech, $15 an hour, 200 scripts per day, manual reconciliation could cost you as much as $1,250 a month. So when we can do that automatically for you in no amount of time, and you see exactly if you're getting paid, if you're not getting paid, we're sending you the reports, we're showing you what's outstanding, we're showing you, generally you're adjudicating those claims, and then, you're going to have a report with a 1 to 30 day bucket, what's outstanding 1 to 30 days, what's outstanding 30 to 60 days. If there's anything out there that's going out beyond 60 days, then we're going to go out and we're going to chase those claims for you up to a 120-day period. So it's really something that pharmacies need to do. The only drawback that I can see to Central Pay is it doesn't go far enough. And the reason it doesn't go far enough is that we can't do business through Central Pay with all the PBMs. So we have another offering called Reconciliation Complete. And what that allows is 100% claim reconciliation. So what we do is we offer you a portal where you can go in and you can see the claim down to the detail. You can key in the script number, and it will take you to that claim and tell you everything about that claim, all the way down to when it was paid, whether it's open, whether it's closed. If you want to look at it, you can look at any date spread, any check, anything you want to look at. If you want to go in and put a check number in of a check that you have received, then you put that check number in, and it will pull up every claim that was paid underneath that check number. So for those top 20 that are paid outside of Central Pay, take Medco for instance, they would send an 835 file. I know you probably don't know what an 835 file is, but it's really a bunch of mumbo-jumbo data on a sheet, and then you upload it into Central Pay, it reads it, and you can match up the dollars with the claims data and reconcile your claims that way. So it's really a good tool, a tool that pharmacies need to use to increase their cash flow and and make sure that they're getting paid for everything that they're adjudicating.
And whether you're a Cardinal Health customer or not, reconcile your claims.
Yes.
Reconcile your claims. There are other services besides ours that will do this electronically. Of course, we think ours is the best, but it's not the only. And you need to make sure that you are doing claim level reconciliation. Just because the computer said you were going to get paid $72.34 for that prescription, you don't have it until you have it, right? So you've got to double check, make sure that they pay you exactly to the penny what was adjudicated, and that they pay you. You're doing 2 checks. Did I ever get paid? And did I get paid what was adjudicated? Did I get paid the right amount? You have to do that at the claim level. You can't just deposit checks and assume everything was just great, or watch for the electronic remittances to hit your bank account. You have to care enough to look at the details. That is the difference between an operator and a good operator. A good operator knows their business.
It's really that way with any of these programs, and that's you have to care enough to use them.
Yep.
And if you use them, then they're going to help make you successful. Prescription editing. Prescription editing happens on the front side. Actually, what happens with prescription editing, it's a series of edits, and it checks the important things about that script before it goes through the switch to the PBM to make sure that everything's correct on that particular script. 3 of the most important edits that I see out of that, number 1 would be AWP. If you submit the incorrect AWP, then you're going to lose money on that script. So what prescription editing does, it automatically checks that AWP. If it's incorrect, you do nothing. It automatically changes it to the correct AWP before it goes to the switch. That's a huge piece of that program. discontinued NDCs. If you submit a discontinued NDC, there's nothing you can do about it on the backside. Whatever you get reimbursed for that, you're going to lose that money. So you can't correct it on the backside. There's a lot of things you can correct on the backside with RCS, but that you cannot correct.
Let's talk about the AWP real fast too. So we talked about the reimbursement formula says they're going to pay you the lesser of. So let's assume it is a branded item. So really the only thing that's going to come into factor is this right here. It's going to be AWP minus whatever percent plus a dispensing fee. So the first thing they look at is what is the AWP your pharmacy system submitted. They have today's published AWP. But if you submitted an old one that's less, they're going to pay you on that one, right? They're going to pay you the least amount they can possibly pay you. If your pharmacy system is not getting frequent AWP updates from your software vendor, you have a potential to lose money there. So make sure you're doing AWP updates. They're never going to overpay you. If you ask for less than what they're willing to pay, they'll pay you less every single time. If given an opportunity, the PBMs will come through like a champ and pay you less than what you thought. So AWP, make sure those are up to date. Make sure you don't have old ones. Know that they're going to look at yours first. If it's less than theirs, that's what you're getting the rest of the calculation based off. If you're higher than them, they're going to defer back to their calculation. They're going to defer back to their AWP list price. So just know that. It's a lesser of, and then even within this, there's another lesser of. I'm sorry. I keep interrupting.
That's great. I'm glad you're bringing it up. Yes.
What are you checking the pre-edit? Because if you're checking it before they hit the switch, you're obviously not going to be charged for submitting the claim. So what's checking those pre-edits for all of those?
There's another software program that sits in there married to your pharmacy system. It's a pre-screen before you really submit. So it's looking at AWP, like Scott said. It's also looking at NDC.
So it goes to, your claim goes to the switch, and then it's shot to MDON, or the company that actually is the pre-edit company, and they're checking all that. But the one thing, normally, if something is wrong, it will pop up on your screen that you need to adjust this before you send this through. If the NDC needs to be adjusted, then you need to adjust it. You need to put the correct one in there.
So is that an add-on?
It's an add-on. A lot of pharmacy systems offer it. We have a program that we offer through Cardinal, but it is out there. Usually works with any pharmacy system. Some pharmacy systems have their own. Some pharmacy systems, you have to use a partner like MDON that sits outside of the system.
That's the other thing about pharmacy systems. You can be relying on your pharmacy system to be updating your AWPs, and that process can stop. I've seen many stores where that happens, and their AWPs are off. This is why this is a good service, because if that stops, they're updating your AWPs to make sure that they're correct.
And the AWP updates happen on the fly. So let's say you submit an AWP of $128. They know that the live AWP is $131. It doesn't go back and overwrite your pharmacy system, but as the claim is going to the switch, it changes 128 to 131 and then submits it to the switch, right? So it's live real-time updates to AWP as it goes right before it hits the switch. So you're not having to back it out and pay another switch fee, right? Switch fees can be 5, 6, 7 cents depending on your supplier or your switch company. Those are incremental charges that you can avoid if you submit it right the first time. Pre-edit, what Scott's talking about, is really like spell check for your prescription. I don't know any other way to talk about it. It gives it the good smell check and smell, spell, and tells you if it's stinky, right? It does. Tries to screen that before you make a mistake.
Okay, on the backside, after the information has already gone through, we have something called reimbursement consulting services. And basically what that is taking a snapshot of your business in time over a certain period of time, and takes all those scripts, and it takes a look at those scripts to see if there's anything that needs to be adjusted that maybe you missed before it was sent through. There's a lot of things that it does. There's a series of reports that comes out. You have a analyst that will call your pharmacy on a bi-weekly basis and actually discuss these reports with you to make sure that you understand. Most of my stores, once they're on that program. They don't wait for anybody to call them because they understand the program, they understand the process, and when I walk in there to talk to them, they're in there making the adjustments in their system that they need to make. Some of those reports would include billing errors. Maybe there was an incorrect NDC. Reverse and rebill. An AWP was incorrect. And you can actually go back, reverse and rebill on that particular one. Maybe it was paid under cost. Maybe you had a usual and customary set incorrectly in your system. There's a usual and customary report that comes out that shows how many times that you were paid at the usual and customary. If you're paid more than 2% of the time at usual and customary, generally that signals that you need to go in and look at your system and make sure your cash pricing is set where it needs to be. So this is just another piece of the stool that it's a good thing to have all three in place to make sure that you're maintaining maximum profitability. Yes, is there going to be some scripts out there from time to time that you might lose money on? Yes, but there's no use in losing profitability when you can have these programs in place to help you keep all that profitability in place. Inventory management. Inventory is the largest asset in your pharmacy. It can creep up on you and hoard up thousands of dollars, or you can lose it in a hurry. That's why a bank won't loan on the inventory, because the inventory can disappear, and you may not even know where it went. So it pays to have some kind of system in place to manage your inventory. Typically, the NCPA Digest shows the average pharmacy at around 12 turns a year, which means that you're turning your inventory about one time a month. So it's good to monitor those turns, because you want to make sure you're keeping enough product on the shelf. So the good thing, one of the things that we have is we have an inventory system called Inventory Manager that actually does a lot of the work for you. It's a tool to help you control your inventory. But we put Inventory Manager in a lot of pharmacies, and the thing that you have to understand when you put a tool like that in your pharmacy, it doesn't sit there and manage your inventory on its own. You have to have a champion that's going to take care of it, use it, and do what you need to do to make sure that you're keeping your inventory under control. The big thing which makes our inventory system different to anyone else's is it has a dynamic min and max. How an inventory system works is you have your inventory in the system. The pharmacist is there sending scripts through, and it's building an order for you during the day. Well, when a drug gets down to a certain min, it's going to order. When it gets below that minimum, that minimum reorder point, it's going to order back up to the maximum. So all other inventory systems out there have a static min and max, which means that you have to adjust that min and max manually. You got to adjust it on your own, so that takes a lot of labor. You have to keep up with that on your own. SIM has a dynamic min and max. Based on everything with SIM goes through the switch. So your order is created when you shoot something through the switch. That's when it says, hey, this went through the switch, they dispensed this, we need to reorder that. So based on your dispensing habits, it's going to automatically adjust those mins and maxes. So that's just something else that you don't have to worry about. That's another administrative issue that you don't have to worry about. So SIM bills your order through the day. It drops it at night. It's keeping your inventory under control, making sure that you've got the right amount of product on the shelf. And then the thing about SIM is that you want to have enough faith in SIM where you get to the point to where the order is just sent automatically at night. You're not still going through that manual process of keying everything in and sending the order. SIM bills the order. If you want to review it, you can review it, but then it's automatically going to send the order later that night.
And guys, just because I know this is kind of alphabet soup, SIM is Cardinal Health Service Strategic Inventory Management, or did I make up the S?
It's CIM, Cardinal Inventory Manager.
Well, I wanted to call it something different.
I'm sorry.
but-
I'm so used to using
our
using
acronyms.
letters and acronyms and things like that. I just don't even think about it. And actually, we've dropped the C off of it. They don't call it Cardinal Inventory Manager anymore. They call it the Inventory Manager.
So we'll call it M.
Yes.
Yeah.
M.
Yeah. One thing, let's talk about inventory. I know we're running real close to the time for lunch in the panel. So one thing we want to talk about with inventory is it is critical to understand your inventory. And as much, I shudder to think most of the stores that we're in, if we ask them when the last time they did a physical inventory, we hear answers like, what's a physical inventory? Or,
Am I supposed to do that?
am I supposed to do that? I like that. Or 1970, fill in the blank. Or for the last 6 years, we've just been adding 3% to the prior year number. You can't do it. If you get your inventory wrong, your whole financial statement is wrong. And let's talk about why real quick. So, do you remember when we were calculating gross margin over here? We took total sales and we took out cost of goods sold. If I don't do an inventory, I don't know my cost of goods sold. Remember when I said cost of goods sold is not adding up all your purchases? Right? Because you didn't sell everything you bought, and you might have bought something you didn't, or you might have sold something you didn't technically buy. So, if you don't have a good cost of goods sold calculation, which requires you to do an inventory, your whole income statement is not right. You don't know gross margin correctly. If you do not know gross margin, you're never going to know net margin. You're not going to know your true EBIT number. You'll approximately know it, but can you afford to be off $100,000 by the time you get to the end of your financial statement? Not if you're paying back a bank note, right? Not if you are trying to buy it still. So let's talk about it. To get an accurate cost of goods sold number, I have to take a beginning inventory. I have to know in dollars what my beginning inventory is. Then I add my purchases, and then I subtract my ending inventory. So what would this look like? When my fiscal year started, I knew what my beginning inventory was. The ending inventory from last year rolls to my current financial statement. It becomes beginning inventory. When the year's over, or the accounting period, month, quarter, I would add up all my purchases. I would have another ending inventory. Add, take it off, whatever I'm left with, that is the cost of the inventory that I moved or I sold, right? Without that number, the rest of that financial statement, the only thing I had right was sales. After that, it wasn't right. The expenses were right, but I was deducting expenses from a number I made up because I just incremented my inventory by 3%. To know turns, Scott said NCPA Digest, sponsored by Cardinal Health, says that the average turns for an independent pharmacy is 12. This is how you calculate turns. Take your cost of goods sold and divide it by your average inventory. Ending inventory is your average inventory. Without inventory, you don't know any of these numbers if you do not take a physical inventory. As a person who might want to own a pharmacy one day, and many of you in here will actually own a pharmacy one day, if you didn't hear anything else today, a lot of this stuff will change. The way CMS interacts, the way reimbursement, a lot of that will change. It's variable. A basic business concept that will not change is the importance of controlling and managing line items that are on that income statement or P&L. Inventory is your largest controllable expense and asset. It's a double whammy. It's an asset, but you also pay money every single week to buy it. So how you do that immediately impacts cash flow and your ability to do other things in your business. There is a huge opportunity cost that's associated with inventory. Because once you choose to do something, buy that inventory, you now have lost the ability to take that money and do something else. Scott talked about that. Think about things in terms of opportunity cost. Same thing with time, right? We're all stretched for time. We all wish we had more of it, right? Too much stuff to do, can't get it done. As soon as you decide to do one thing, you've just eliminated something else. Same thing with money. Once you decide to spend it one place, you've just excluded another opportunity, right? So think about opportunity cost and the value of making the right operational decisions when you're sitting in that chair being the CEO, COO, CIO, whatever all the things we listed that you were going to be for that business. Inventory is not taken seriously enough. And it will dramatically impact your ability to pay your other obligations, not just your wholesaler bill, but all the other obligations, payroll, insurance, if you offer other incentives for your employees, health insurance. retirement plans, anything else that you would like to park funds to do with, if you don't get your arms around inventory, it will start to really chew away at your ability to do other things that you'd like to do. So really, I spent too much time talking about it, but probably not enough time. Inventory really matters. You got to get your hands on it. You've got to take it seriously.
Well, we skipped around a lot. I didn't mean to actually go in this order, but I'm going to mention one other thing. It's right at 12 o'clock. But one thing that we have to deal with this day and time is the regulatory environment. The day is past when a pharmacy can dispense all the controls that it wants to dispense. The DEA says that they want everyone to look vanilla. They don't want one store across town dispensing huge amounts of oxycodone and another store across town the same volume is down here and they're way up here. Or across the county, a store in the county. We actually had a store. It was way down south. It was in a population of about 8,000 people, and they were the #1 dispenser of oxycodone in the United States in a population of 8,000. That's what the DEA says that we're not going to tolerate anymore. So in 2008, the DEA started aggressively pursuing prescription drug abuse, and at that time they came to all the wholesalers and they said you have to put some sort of program in place to actually actively monitor your accounts. So that's what we do on a daily basis, is actively monitor our accounts. We want everyone to have ample supply of product into the supply chain, but we also have a responsibility to protect the supply chain. So that's why the DEA says that we all have a corresponding responsibility. The doctors, the manufacturers, the wholesalers, the retailers, we all have a responsibility to protect the supply chain. So it's not enough, and the only reason that I brought this up is just something that I want all pharmacists to be aware of, is that they do have a responsibility to do that. And it's not enough anymore when they walk in the door and say, well, that particular doctor had a DEA license. He's been okayed by the DEA. That's a valid prescription. I'm going to fill it. So just something else to think about. We appreciate your time today. Hope it didn't bore you too much. And you all have a good day.
The only thing we didn't hit was we were going to do an exercise where we thought we wanted you to take some time and think, if you did have a pharmacy, or you were going to have a pharmacy, pretty short time frame, what were some of those additional services or things you wanted to focus on as a pharmacy owner? And then we were going to kind of sit back and talk about some of that stuff. That's the one thing we didn't get to today. So do that. You've probably already done it. It sounded like a lot of people have, when we went through the introductions, that you all had really already spent some time thinking about, why would I ever want to have my own store? Why would I want to be independent? And a lot of you had turned the corner even in your answer today. And you're like, the reason why is I'd like to be able to do this, and I know I can't do that elsewhere. Keep thinking in those terms. What is the value that you guys are going to create and add when you do own a store? Or if you don't own, if you work inside a store, what's the passion? What are the things that you're passionate about pharmacy? It's not just putting the NDC number and the day supply and putting the patient information into the computer and hitting the send button, right? That's exciting like the first 200 times you do it, right? Then it's robotic, right? What are the things that you're really passionate about that's driven you to pharmacy, that makes you even consider independent pharmacy? And take that same passion and decide what you're going to do when it is your store one day, or when you are working in that store. What are some changes that you can make in healthcare that affect the patient level in your community? It only happens with the independents, right? Anybody can help outcomes with MTM. That's a great thing that we're doing. But the